often think about dopamine as the 3 M's. So kind of movement, which we know about, motivation and mood. If you're a bit sort of overcooked on dopamine, then you tend to have uncontrollable movement, kind of mood can be highly variable, and the sort of motivation can, and so people can be a bit impulsive, compulsive, and energized, if you like. And the flip side, obviously, the opposite of that is then the kind of sort of stiffness, rigidity, the kind of low mood, and the kind of loss of motivation. And there's obviously a little bit of dyskinesia.
Yeah, I mean, the other night was trying to eat my food, and I couldn't get this hand. It just wouldn't come up any. I was having to lean all the way down to have my food.
Is that when your meds wear off a bit?
I think when I'm sort of quiet, when I'm moving around, it's less noticeable. But even just sort of if almost like the more I think about it, the worse it gets. I haven't felt like myself.
And then we need to think about the sort of DBS side of things, don't we? For most patients with Parkinson's, that little green area is the subthalamic nucleus. That's the field, that sort of brown ball that's kind of buried in it. So that targeting is really good, and that's providing good symptom control. And so you can see what you want to do is target this as carefully as possible with your electrodes, and then you will set up your stimulating field to try and target this area and avoid these others. The reason why it's a little bit easier to do it under anaesthetic and with coordinates is because actually then you can pull that field into an oval, you can push it more left and right, front or back. So obviously when we talked about DBS before and referring you up, you were a bit, I think, kind of knocked for 6. I suppose that I'd even discussed it as an option. What knocked you for 6 about that discussion?
I had an about face, because initially when we talked about it on the very first sort of meeting that we had, and we came out and Richie was saying, isn't that amazing that they've got this thing? And I said, are you kidding me? Yeah. I have trust issues, Yeah. I don't know whether or not I'm good. I trust people with scissors on my hair, let alone with a, do you know what I mean? Yes. I'm the sort of person who checks inside my sandwiches. I am. Who's going to...
Somebody's going to have a root about in your brain.
So to say to somebody, knock yourself out, just poke about and stick some wires in, I was thinking, whereas now I'm thinking I would bite their ankles off in order to have it, because for me it equals getting better or as better as I can be. I spend such a lot of time with people who are constantly telling me that you can't tell that I've got Parkinson's. To feel that I would be a candidate for it was almost, it's validating that I've got Parkinson's, but it doesn't fit in with the mirror that's being held up to me on a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yeah. I mean, there are lots of different reasons why you might think of somebody as a good candidate for deep brain stimulation. So sometimes it's a tremor thing, and we know that that's a difficult symptom. Sometimes it's this sort of roller coaster, as somebody was saying to me earlier today, this kind of motor fluctuation where they're on, they're off, they're on, they're off, and their tablets work for them, but not for long. Or they're very sort of wriggly and dyskinetic when they're on. And so you don't really get that, you don't get much good on time for a person. And that roller coaster, that sort of person can respond quite well to DBS. And then the other thing is the sort of dystonia, which is quite common in Parkinson's, but not normally quite as bad as yours. That seems to me to be a good target surgically as well. I guess you have to just have a realistic expectation of what the surgery does, don't you?
It helps with your extremities almost,
yes.
But not the core stuff. So it's not going to help me with fatigue or those sorts of, it wouldn't help with my memory, but it might help me with my, with the dystonia shizzle that happens on the feet and hands.
Definitely kind of reduces muscle stiffness, dystonia, posturing, discomfort. Can be useful for pain, for tremor. You have to sort of, like I said, it's different for everybody. I think the other nice thing about the DBS is that it theoretically anyway is functioning 24 hours a day, which means your first bit of the day where you might be under-medicated, your overnight, which can be tricky. It has a role for that as well. It takes quite a lot of fine-tuning, and I would usually say to people it will take about 6 to 12 months after surgery to get a sort of point of equilibrium where your symptom control is optimal.
Archie, you are a living legend.
Fine.